People at Questar that are here know I use this quote all the time, but I'm going to use it again because I think it's so appropriate for today, which is from Oliver Wendell Holmes, when he said, "A mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its original dimensions." The events that we've had over the last year, the things that we're doing, the peer exchange, the opportunities for our companies to work with each other and sharing ideas is stretching our minds. And as we do that, we'll never go back to where we were. We'll always be moving forward. And I'm excited as a business leader in the community, as many of you are, to be able to see these things taking place and to be part of that momentum.
Who is here and why are we here? I'm sure that's what we always wonder when we go to functions like this. You are all representatives of organizations that have taken the Elevate Her Challenge. The Elevate Her Challenge, as you know, was something that we started last May and launched formally to elevate the stature of women's leadership in the state of Utah. Why are we meeting here today? We want to rekindle the rationale behind elevating women's leadership and to understand the benefits to our homes, to our communities, to our state, to our businesses, and remind people that this is a business imperative. Taking the Elevator Challenge and elevating women is really a business imperative. It helps the ROI, it helps the reputation of companies, and all of the research indicates that. We have relied heavily on the research that our great Susan Madsen has provided for us with the Utah Women's Project down at Utah Valley University, and as a member of our board, she has been so generous with that. I'd like to give her a round of applause too, thanking her for that. All of the research indicates that gender diversity at the board and management levels improves financial performance. And why are we here? We want to hear the feedback from some of Utah's top business leaders on how they are implementing the Elevator Challenge within their own organizations. We want to know, too, the tough stuff. We want to know the challenges of implementing the Elevator Challenge and how to go about it and why it's important to our organizations.
But the reason it was important to us and the governor when we had this discussion, we represent the taxpayers and the citizens of the state of Utah, half of which happen to be female. And what we've realized is that voice is missing from so many of the decisions that we're making in this state. And when I look at the decisions in my family that we're making, I can tell you that it's not a 50-50 proposition. It's actually inverse. My wife, and we see that, and I don't say that facetiously, I say it sincerely, that the decisions that are being made by and large, and the statistics prove this out, financially especially, are being made by women. That's why it matters to businesses, but it also matters, again, to the taxpayers of the state of Utah. Are we spending the taxpayer dollars the way they should be spent? And the decisions that we're making are impacting families, and nobody's more in tune with how those decisions impact the day-to-day lives of the citizens of the state of Utah than the women here. And if the women aren't in that room, then the odds of those being the right decisions, or at least discussing the nuances of those decisions, it's just not happening. And I'll be very blunt here. It's especially not happening in the Republican Party here in the state of Utah, and that's something that concerns me deeply. We have a supermajority in the legislature, and when you've got 64 members of the House of Representatives, or whatever the number is, I know it's close to that, and 64 Republicans out of 75, and only 3 of them are women, then it's impossible to have a woman on every committee, right? There just aren't enough to go around when the dimensions are that skewed. And so that's why I care, because I want to make the best decisions, and I can't do that unless I have the right people in the room.
Extension of our culture, and it was we have a couple of core values in our business. Our defining core value is known as putting people first, and that means putting all people first. But one of our other main core values is continuous improvement. And we viewed this as a way to measure whether we are continuously improving with the promotion of women into leadership roles. Over half of the employees in our company are women, and I'm proud to say that nearly half of the 400 leaders in our organization are women as well. but there's still a little bit of a delta there, so we need to do a better job of getting more women into leadership. Another reason we think it's so important is because you've probably all heard about the looming war for talent, and businesses are having difficulty attracting the right number, the right types of people and leaders, and there's plenty of data out there that shows that having women in leadership roles and on boards actually improves the performance of the company. And we're very data driven, so getting involved in this challenge was a way for us to further extend our culture, but also as a way, in the spirit of continuous improvement, to measure our results on how we're doing promoting more women into leadership roles.
Zions Bank has started with the understanding the importance of women when we started the Women's Financial Group in 1997. And that really changed the perception of Zions Bank to make sure that everyone knew that we were open to all people in our community, women and minorities and everybody, because sometimes the perception of big banks or regional banks or sometimes even community banks is that they're only for the people, they only want to lend money to the people that don't need it. Or they only want customers that are, that are wealthy and some other perceptions like that. So starting the Women's Financial Group in 1997 really started to move our needle. And then in 2007, we started our Business Women's Forum. And that was where we brought women from all across the company and brought them together in a networking atmosphere and a mentoring atmosphere so that everyone felt like they had someone that they had support them in whatever their career opportunities and ambitions may be. So taking the leadership and the elevator challenge, we had both Scott Anderson, president of Zions Bank, and Harris Simmons, the CEO and chairman of the board for Zions Bank Corp., both in attendance to take the elevator challenge. And like was mentioned before, I believe it was by Ron, it's really just changed the conversation. And I see that in all of the meetings that I attend, that the conversation is changing to make sure that there's women involved in the conversation, there's women involved in the decisions, and there's women at the table. Their voices are being heard, and I think it's making a huge difference in our organization.
We've done a lot of research. We have a chief diversity officer, which I spend a lot of time. I spend about 25% of my time on nothing but just talent. And it's a lot of what Mike talked about. The war on talent has become very, very aggressive in terms of how to get that talent in. And we actually underwrote and sponsored, if you ever get a chance, it's called the Sponsorship Effect. It was a terrific study that our chief diversity officer did a lot of the work, Carrie Perano. And what they found is statistically, not just mentoring, but when women have a sponsor, a real sponsor at the company, what a difference that makes. So, for me, I was involved in a lot of that. And then for something just a little more personal, I was in the job probably about a year. We do an internship every year where we bring in undergraduates, 10 to 15 undergraduates. So I went through and I want to interview all of the interns. I completed all of the interviews, and there was not one female at the end of that cycle. And I had talked to probably about 26 candidates. And it was by circumstance, Pat and Trish approached me about a week later, and I jumped at the chance. Because I just said we need to do, there's something more. Even as progressive as American Express is, we're not progressive enough because I should have had 5 out of the 26. These are great internships that are paid. And I didn't have one female that came to interview. So I wanted to change what was happening. Even though I thought what we were doing was a lot of great stuff. I mean, we have goals stacked against it, but there's always, I think to Ron's point, more that a company can do.
The decisions we make are better if we have a broad set of minds and attitudes and perspectives at the table to inform those decisions. And we are a better organization if the decisions we make are comprised of people who can look at challenges and problems more broadly. But I'm also married to a woman who has tried to make her way in the workplace as an attorney. And the
field of law is oftentimes not a forgiving or accommodating place for a woman to make her way in the workplace. And so I not only see this as the perspective of being the Salt Lake County mayor, but also as married to someone who's tried to make her way through the workplace. Unfortunately, she now works at the University of Utah, and they've made great strides to work with her and accommodate her schedules and desires and our family's goals and objectives.
I'd like to have each of you describe how do you get buy-in from top down in order to actually push this forward in your organizations. This is always one of the most challenging things, is how do you get people that really can make the decisions to buy in and understand the value of the elevator challenge.
You need to have more than just your very top level. You need to make sure that the men at every level of your organization are supporting women at their level. And even if you have senior management that are men, they need to be supporting women that are working with them or working for them, so that they can make sure that they do become a sponsor, and they continue to promote them and they continue to encourage them in their career. So we're fortunate to have it at the top, and we're working very hard. And I think the Elevator Challenge has really helped to make sure that men at all levels of our organization are seeing the benefits of the Elevator Challenge.
Not just that it's the right thing to do or the nice thing to do. That should be enough, but it often isn't. But if you can make the business case, the diversity case that shows that you actually, you do make better decisions. We have actual studies on this from very scientific people that know a lot more than I do, that show that we make better decisions when there's diverse backgrounds in our organizations, and that's data that we didn't have even 10 years ago. And so when you can make the heart and the mind case, you're much more likely to convince people.
As we've started to think about peer-to-peer exchanges, starting to change the conversation, trying to convince people of why to do something versus being maniacally focused to say, if you don't, here's what could happen. And unfortunately, there's plenty of benchmarks of companies that have not sort of started to make that change, and you can start to highlight those. So I think one thing is change the conversation. Don't worry so much about why you should be doing it. You should be more maniacally focused on, if you don't, here's what could happen.
The hearts part of it, I think, is helping people to recognize that we are a better organization. That we're not accepting the women's leadership, the Elevate Her Challenge, because we want to do it for them. We want to do it for us because it's going to make us a better organization. We're going to perform better by doing that. And I think marrying a little bit the data and then the understanding at the executive level and throughout the organization, understand that we're a better organization are the tools that we're hoping to use to advance that.
This is our first peer-to-peer exchange. We will be holding more peer-to-peer exchanges. We're thinking of our next one, looking at women, maybe younger women and women that are older who are looking into non-traditional, I don't know if that's the correct term, but non-traditional occupations, because we're getting so many requests from organizations and industries saying we just need more women who can step into that. So we will be putting those together. We hope that you'll be engaged with that. We did want that. And then we also have our second annual, on May 12th, Elevate Her Challenge. And we're just underway in planning for that. We wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, so you can check our website. I want to put a shameless plug in for the political piece of this. You've heard a little bit about this, but it also shows you how important it is that women step in and run for office. And it's not necessarily winning. It really isn't. It's once you put your hat in the ring, once you're willing to run for office, you are put on a different level that you're willing to step up. And I would just highly encourage you all to look at those kinds of opportunities, because those can make you more, visible, and maybe as candidates for boards and things that I know that many women, strive to be part of.
Let me just give you an example. Most of the people that we're appointing to boards and commissions are people who have been in some sort of public service already. So they've been on city councils, they've been county commissioners, and we routinely get recommendations. Again, when we're talking about thousands of people, we don't go out there and handpick them. We get a list of names from different organizations making recommendations to us. We have a website where you can go and say you're interested in these organizations. You can apply there. That's how it works. And so we routinely routinely get these lists back of people, and the governor has to make a choice, and he's got 5 minutes, and we have a bio, and we look at them, and there's just no women to choose from. And so that's been our biggest challenge, is to get people in at the bottom level. Now, you can run for the state legislature never having done public service before. There's no restrictions on that, but I will tell you, and from somebody who started on a city council and was a mayor, a county commissioner, then a House of Representatives, that's one way to do it. And it's easier for people to jump in at that level, at the city level, whether it's on a planning commission. And until it starts there, we're never going to have the depth of talent we need to make these appointments. We've had some great successes in some places, but we've got to push it down and get the word out, and that's one of the things that the WLI is trying to do. That's why we're such believers in it. We believe that this is an organization, and there's already been a cohort of women interested in running for office, but that we can use this to get that word out, because there's only so much we can do. We're asking people to please submit names, but I made this joke before, but my wife calls it STP. It's the same 10 people. And the women that are willing to run for office are already doing, their PTA presidents, and they have callings in their church assignments. They're doing all of these things, and we need a new batch of women that are willing and ready to step out there. But it's hard. Just one quick thing. I've talked too much, but I needed a mentor. This was important to me, because you don't know what you don't know. And I thought I was really good at this stuff. And so the Governor's General Counsel, J.C. Skinner, has become my mentor on these issues. And just today, she had an experience. She was with Carlos Braceras, who is the head of UDOT. And they were waiting to talk to a legislator. And a lobbyist came up to them and said, "Carlos, how you doing? It's nice to see you. Doing great. I love the messages you put on the signs on the freeway on Mondays. That makes me laugh. Do you do that? Who does that?" He's like, No, we have a team that does that. And he's like, "Oh," and he turns to JC, he's like, do you help on that? Are you like interning? What do you do? She's like, no, I don't work for Carlos. He's like, "Oh, well, what do you do?" She's like, "Well, I'm the Governor's General Counsel." He went, "Oh, wow." And then he said this, he's like, "I'm way below you," and it was a great, but what he was saying is, before this conversation, I thought I was way above you, right? That was just, and so those are the conversations I have that help me think, we have so far to go, and I'll end with this. She sent me an article that just came out last week, and if you haven't seen it, it's in the Washington Post. It's amazing. It's titled, "Be Pretty but Not Too Pretty, Why Women Just Can't Win." And it says this: "If you're tough and take charge, you're pushy, bossy, and maybe even a B. If you stand aside and let others give direction, you're meek, weak, probably not leadership material. If you're a woman and you show emotion, you're fragile, dramatic, crazy. But if you're emotionally restrained, you're cold, heartless, maybe even stupid. If you take generous maternity leave and carve out time for family responsibilities, you're insufficiently serious about your career. If you're post-baby, you're back at the office too soon, you're a poor role model for colleagues yearning for healthy work-life balance." And these are the conversations that she and I have. And so, you talk about challenges, there's plenty to go around, and you know what they are better than I do.
And this dialogue is very, very important. But I would just challenge all of us. I guarantee that every single one of us today, as you are hearing things be said and the comments that were made, have thought about things that would make your organization better, that would move us down the road faster, that would get us in the place where we all want to be. And so be brave, be bold, take those items and talk to someone. And I would challenge all of us in our roles to listen. And I can tell you at Questar, the team that just stood up here, the team that have mentored me and coached me on the things that we needed to do different. So be bold. Go back and make sure those ideas you've got in your minds right now get put on paper, get generated, and we'll move this process a lot faster if we do that. So thank you again. Please have a wonderful day and be safe.